Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, May 15th, on a lovely, hot first basically week of summer here. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, I am great, thank you. I'm excited that we're finally back on a Monday night at 10 p.m. Isn't this like the first normal show we've done in about 3 or 4 weeks?
Yes, and it should be at least the case for the next 3, guys. We're back. No, it is. It's good to be back in our normal time slot. It'll be nice to have the regular turnout. Of course, the 11 o'clock. It's too late for some people. It's too late for me. But it's good to be back. How's your week been?
Everything's been good, thank you. I got to escape to Seattle. For my first, I know you've been there before, my first visit to Climate Pledge. I watched a team that is no longer playing in the playoffs, but that's okay. And that was good. Some good family time over the weekend. Still in between courses, so pretty relaxed. Things are going well. And getting ready to go on a trip, actually, taking our two of our 3 kids to the bowling national championships in the hotbed of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. So we will. I can make Monday night work. It just might be a little bit late from my side, but we'll figure it out.
Sounds good. They couldn't do it in Toronto.
No,
they couldn't get you the big city.
No, spend a few more $100 to fly an hour 15 further north.
Right.
How about you? How are you?
I'm good. I also escaped to Seattle in the past week. I went and did some golfing, did some stadium golfing at Lumen Field, which is very interesting.
Awesome.
And I looked and we teed off at 5 o'clock there. And I thought that Kraken game on Saturday night was going to be at 7, but it was at 4.
Yes.
So I wasn't able, I was thinking maybe we could sneak in the Kraken game that evening. Cause it's a beautiful arena. I mean, you texted me, it puts Rogers Arena to shame, and you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It is an absolutely fantastic stadium.
It's beautiful. It's new, and the thing is, we know it's gonna be high tech. We know it's gonna be new because it's brand new. But I couldn't get over it. And Parker, you told me, you warned me is not the right word because you're affirming it. It's so spacious. It's so you never feel crowded. You know, Rogers Arena, whether you're upper or lower concourse, you always feel crammed. It's not like that at all. In fact, you could, I don't know why you do this, but you could hold hands with whoever you're at the game and kind of walk around like this and you'll be fine.
Yeah, they're because they only have the one concourse and they sort of have like the secret lower level.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a super wide concourse that you can get anywhere. It's fantastic. Very, very excellent.
Very impressive.
Excellent stadium. We've got a good show, I hope, tonight. Not a lot of Canucks news, but there has, the sort of cap has come out for next year, as in, I think it was Puckpedia that has moved on to the next season for their cap numbers, and the Canucks are already $1.5 million over the cap.
Awesome.
Based on their current contracts, with only 6 defensemen, 1 goaltender, if you don't include Spencer Martin, and like 12 forwards. Like they have no cap space. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have round 2 to recap, as round 2 has now come to an end. Round 3 to maybe do a couple of predictions on, which I have not prepped. So I am going to be...
Parker, you could not. You don't even know who's playing, and you're still going to beat me. I know I'm 5-7 over the first 12 rounds.
That's okay. I don't know what my predictions went this last one, but it looks like I got one series right. So it doesn't look great for me. Okay.
No.
Well,
yeah. Pathetic.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So where do we want to get started? Should we just dive into whatever topics we want?
Yeah, well, I always say this, because we are Canucks After Dark, we should probably start with the Canucks stuff and then move into the playoffs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a decent idea.
Okay. So I guess what happened since last time? No, we did our show Monday night, so that was post-draft lottery, correct?
Correct. Yes, we know that the Canucks. We already have discussed the Canucks not getting the first pick or the second pick, and Chicago getting it, which of course is not ideal.
Right.
But yes, we've already covered that.
And we talked about the $50,000 fine already. I remember that.
Yes, and then I don't know why I put that minus $50,000 in the thumbnail. I think it worked because we went from the previous week being our worst performing show, I think, ever, like 350 total views. Last week's got 1,200 total views. So we had a little bounce back. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know the secret. I think it's the number in red in the thumbnail. So I did it twice this week. So
I saw that. Double.
Goes. We're doubling down. So hopefully that works out. But I mean, obviously the biggest Canucks topic of the week is John Garrett Day.
Yes.
Was May 10th, last Wednesday. Which
yes. Yeah, I think I saw, did Dan Murphy, like a couple of Sportsnet guys went with him?
There,
yeah. And then Ken Sims, the mayor, and then a bunch of people that I don't know because I live in Richmond, although I work in Vancouver. But pretty cool. Right. So May 10 is now going to be John Garrett Day.
Yep, absolutely.
In city of Vancouver, not like worldwide.
We'll celebrate it though. But no, I think the real topic that we had Canucks related is going to be just talking about cap space and what do the Canucks have to do. And that's going to be the big topic for most teams nowadays, right? We're down to 4. Yeah. So you saw it with the Leafs, especially today, right? The Leafs have their big, what's Kyle Dubas going to do? Are they going to replace him? Are they going to trade Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, these guys who didn't perform in the playoffs, while you have a guy like Willie Nylander coming out and being their best player at 5-on-5, making quite a bit less. The Canucks are in a pretty tough spot as well. If you were to pull up their cap friendly page, right, they're going to be well over the cap as it currently stands, and they're going to need to make some adjustments to get below that. The obvious ones are going to be wingers, right? Wingers don't have a lot of value right now around the NHL because the cap is so stunted. But the Canucks are, you look at the Canucks list here. You have JT Miller, who plays the wing better than center a lot of the time. You have Brock Besser making 6.65 for 2 more years. You have Connor Garland making 4.95 for 3 more years. You have Anthony Beauvillier making 4.5 for the next year. You have Andrei Kuzmenko making 5.5, although he seems to be well worth that. And then, of course, you have guys like Kravtsov, who's an RFA, but he's not going to get much of a raise. So the wingers are an obvious one. And then, of course, the defense as well, right? Oliver Ekman-Larsson for 4 more years at 7.26. Tyler Myers for 1 more year at 6. And, of course, that Philip Roenick contract at 4.4 adds on to that a little bit as well. So the big rumors, effectively, to sort of kick off this topic, floating around in the past week, it's been Brock Besser for the past couple of years, but this week it really centered around Connor Garland.
Wow. Yeah. What's crazy, and you did a very good video this week, Parker. I watched it when you actually spent some time talking about Connor Garland, and you referenced the fact that people like you and me both, we were excited when Connor Garland got moved here. We looked at him, as you called it, he was basically the centerpiece. We were more excited about him than OEL. Yeah. And, of course, we were excited about losing $12 million. We weren't excited about losing a 9th overall draft pick, but that's past. But, yeah, and you pulled out some really good stats. I think some of the most fascinating ones you pulled out is his 5-on-5 time, because he doesn't get any power play time. He's not on the first unit, for sure, and he barely gets on the second unit. So he's piling up all these points at even strength.
Yeah, right. You look at the last 2 seasons, effectively, about 100 points total. I think 98 points over the past 2 seasons, so an average of about 50 points a season, which is more at 5-on-5 than JT Miller.
Wow!
Right, like that was sort of my big statement of the video was, hey, look, Connor Garland, the eye test isn't fantastic, but at 5-on-5, which is where he gets all of his ice time because he doesn't play on the power play, he's quite effective. He was like 5th on the Canucks. I think I might be getting it wrong. You can go watch the video if you want the actual stats. But he was like 5th or 6th on the Canucks in 5-on-5 points per 60. And 2 or 3 of those players were players who played like 4 games. Like Aatu Ratu has played 4 games and he has a higher points per 60. Right? That's not going to be sustainable. And there was someone else as well, right? So that's, he, like genuinely at 5-on-5, he's going to be effective. And especially when you're hearing that the Canucks would have to add a piece just to shed that contract. And it makes sense, right? Teams aren't going to be doing the Canucks any favors. They know the Canucks are over the cap. They know they're going to have to pay to get below it. But, if a team can pick up a guy like Connor Garland for essentially free, it's going to be highway robbery because they're going to, you see a team that's going to be lower in the standings, right? A team that can have that can take on that extra cap space effectively.
Sure.
They're going to put a guy like Connor Garland on power play 1. Right, a team that's not in the playoffs probably could use another player to go dig the puck off the wall like Connor Garland and create some space. And he's gonna put up like 70 points, right? He's gonna put up his 45 at 5-on-5, and he'll add another 15, 20 on the on the power play, and it's going to look terrible for the Canucks once again. Which is why I made that video. You know, I haven't loved Connor Garland in his time here. I just think it's such a big mistake to basically give up at his lowest point.
Now, Connor Garland, he played. Rick Tocchet coached, right? Coached him in Arizona for sure. So let's presume that he likes Garland, and let's presume that Boudreau maybe didn't like him, or I wouldn't say didn't like him. He didn't value him as high as other guys. It's tricky because Garland seems to check the boxes, at least from an effort and grittiness for his size standpoint. But how much does he move the needle? You kind of don't notice him because he sometimes gets rubbed out on the board. Sometimes we talked about he kind of skates with some frenetic energy, but doesn't always make a difference. But quietly, and that's why I really liked your video, he's been just solidly contributing without having the minutes and the power play time as the other guys. So honestly, I would, if I had to pick between, I know we can throw Bavili in there in a second. Some people in the chat are said, what about Bo? But I know if we're talking about Besser or Garland, I like Besser as a player more. I also understand Besser makes $1.7 million more, but he also got 1 year less. So I don't know. I don't know which way we want to go.
Yeah, if I had to trade one, and let's assume at this point you are getting nothing in return. It is just a pure cap dump for future considerations, right?
Yep.
Because I don't think they're going to get much more than that for either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like giving up on either of them. However, I understand that you might have to. Can you get rid of Anthony Beauvillier for nothing? Right? That would be what I would lean more towards if possible.
Over the other two, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know why, and it might be Stockholm Syndrome on Brock Besser. But it just feels like it's got to work. It's going to work. Like he's going to have that.
I'm with you.
He's going to take that step at some point because he's shown that promise that I don't want to just get rid of him for nothing. But you look at Connor Garland, right? That Rick Tocchet 2020-2021 season, the shortened season for Arizona, they won 24 games out of the 56 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Connor Garland was third on that team in points. He played 7 fewer games than Jacob Chychrun, who had 2 more points than him. He played 7 fewer games than Phil Kessel, who had 4 more points than him. Points per game wise, Connor Garland led that team ahead of Clayton Keller, ahead of Nick Schmaltz, ahead of Christian Dvorak, and ahead of Phil Kessel. He's got it in him. He's 24 years old, right? Yep. Like, he hasn't shown it here because he hasn't had the power play time. I think that would make a huge difference for a guy like him. And I think having Rick Tocchet as a coach might help as well. I just think it's the worst time to sell a player like Connor Garland because you're getting absolutely nothing back. But also, there's a necessity factor. They have to get rid of some money. And they're going to get pennies on the dollar for the player that they trade because teams know that. Yes. So who do you pull the plug on, right? Is it Connor Garland, who just a couple of years ago you basically gave up the 9th overall pick to get, right? Is it Brock Besser, who you've developed into this player who started out so strong and has sort of faltered, but you kind of get the feeling that now, like if there's ever going to be a time that it works, maybe it's now, because you're not going to be able to shed that Oliver Ekman-Larsson money, and you could maybe pull off a Tyler Myers move at that $6 million, but then you're going to have to replace him much more difficultly than a winger.
And great segue. Before we acknowledge Carol's generous donation, also Fangirl uses her monthly membership message to shout out that she's been a member for 10 months. So thank you, Fangirl. And Carol, we love you. We know you're using talk to text, so we're going to figure this thing out. Hi, Parker. Hi, Clay. My question is, if we get rid of OEL, Garland, Myers, and what's Noel? Will that be enough money for us to get some things happening?
I think and OEL. I think that's OEL at the end. I don't know who Oreo. That might be Connor Garland, Myers, and OEL.
Okay.
Will that be enough money for us to get some things happening? Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but that's the problem, right? Getting rid of OEL is going to be next to impossible. That contract's not going to work. You have to hope for a miracle of medicine for OEL's legs to start working again, and for him to get back to the player he was. Garland, I genuinely think that Garland has to have some value to some team. We've heard Chicago, and I think Kai mentioned it in the chat earlier, that a guy like get Connor Garland for essentially nothing to put on Connor Bedard's wing. That's probably that's fantastic for a team to take a big step right away, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Myers even, right? I don't think he has positive value, but 1 year at $6 million for a defenseman who can eat up 21 minutes a night and take way too many penalties, a team might take a flyer on that for essentially nothing. But yeah, OEL, you're not going to get anything for it. And I feel like, if you can get rid of Myers, that's great, but you're going to need another defenseman to replace him. If you think that's Ethan Bear, maybe, but you're going to have to give him a bit of a raise. He only made $1.8 million last year, and I think he deserves more, and he knows it. You're probably not going to do that with Kyle Burrows. Travis Dermott's an RFA. I don't think we're going to be seeing much of Tucker Poolman. Who do you have in the minors, right? Are you going to have Christian Wolainen coming up, Jet Wu?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see Jet Wu a ton this year. I think you might see Christian Wolainen a little bit, but it gets pretty bleak pretty quickly.
Sure. Thank you, Carol, for the donation. Thank you, Parker.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No, the thing is, I agree with everything you said, but call me crazy. I would be fine with the right side of Hronek, Bear with a new contract, and Jet Wu in some sheltered minutes. I really would, because that means you're getting rid of Myers and $6 million. But you know what's crazy, Parker? You may have noticed this already. We have either guys that make $4 million or more, or $1 million or less. We have no one under contract. Bear will probably be the only one. We have no one under contract who makes between $1 million and $4 million a year. And guess what?
Yeah.
Those are the guys that you can make hockey trades for. $4 million and up, usually you're throwing in a sweetener because that's expensive. $1 million or below, you're not getting much because that guy's only a $1 million player. It's crazy to me that we don't have anyone that makes between $1 and $4 million. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it really is, right? Yeah, you look at the forwards that jump from 950 to 415. I mean, your exceptions, of course, are the ones on IR. Right?
Yes.
Tanner Pearson, Tucker Poolman.
Those are the right.
Now let me throw a new right side at you.
Yep.
Same top two.
Okay.
And then let's throw in Troy Stetcher as that third pair defenseman.
What do you make last year? Yeah, what do you make last year?
125, I think.
That's
essentially nothing. Yeah, he made 125. He was a minus 3 on the Coyotes in 61 games. That sounds pretty good to me. And I just like Troy Stetcher. I don't know if he'd be much better. Is Christian Wolainen a lefty? Yeah, he's a lefty.
He is. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean maybe you're doing something like, having like a Stetcher, Wu, Juleson sort of like, or you could do a guy like Philip Johansson, right? Maybe he takes a step in this offseason. I mean, he's only 23.
Yeah,
former
that's true.
First round pick. I think a guy like that, we always talk about training camp and the bodies that, if you get 5 guys competing for that number 3 spot, you only need one to excel, right? Like Kyle Burrows did last year, right? And then you basically get a super cheap third pair guy. If they could do that with, you throw Juleson and Wu and Johansson, for example, you throw them all into that competition for the number 3 spot.
Yep.
There's a real chance none of them pull it off. But maybe one of them does, or maybe you go out and add a cheap third pairing guy like a Troy Stetcher or someone along those lines that you can throw into that mix.
So can you envision a top 4 of Hughes, OEL, Hronek, Bear?
I'm
no Myers.
fine with
no
it.
Myers. Yeah.
OEL needs to take a jump though.
Yeah.
OEL cannot be the same player he was last year because
right.
It's just not going to work.
Nor can he be our third pairing guy at 7.3 though.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Ethan Bear, I really like. I like him a lot as a third pair guy. I think he can step into that second pair. I mean, really, we are talking about scraps here, though, right?
Yes.
We are trying to piece together a 22nd best in the NHL decor, just to get away with it. So that way, the goaltending and forwards can give the Canucks enough of a push to at least hopefully make the playoffs. But it's tough sledding, right? it's going to be
Okay, actually, this is good. Here's one question then. Let's say it is Hughes and OEL 1 and 2 on the left. If you had to handicap it right now, between Wolanin, Hirose, and Rathbone, only those three guys.
on the left.
Yep.
It's Wolanin.
Yep.
Wolanin looks really good, and in my 2 Abbotsford Canucks games I went to,
That's right. You did go. Yep.
Wolanin was the standout for sure.
Okay.
He's a really good defenseman at that level. I think he's the perfect like number 7.
Yeah.
That can step in an injury and play like 18 minutes and not look too out of place.
Did Hirose play Abbotsford Canucks playoffs games?
I don't
could
think
he? Was he allowed to?
No, because I think they're only able to send 4 guys down.
Oh.
And I don't think he was sent down. No, he only played the 7 NHL games this year.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. No, Wolanin, he was by far the best player, at least stats-wise, in the AHL.
Yeah.
Okay, so bottom line is our defense still sucks, is basically what it is.
Yeah, it's not going to be good, right? And you're going to have to shed salary and hope that you end up good enough with the players you have.
Right.
And it really seems like a stretch, right? You know, a quick fix if there was a defenseman in the draft available that could step in, but it really doesn't seem like there is. People aren't really too high on those top 2D really in the draft.
That's what I've been hearing. That's crazy.
Yeah, so
they get overpicked, right? Because
the Canucks have that need, right? But it might not be the way to go, apparently. We'll see, of course, as we get closer. I think you're just going to have to bring in a bunch of cheap bodies to compete, like they did 2 years ago and really like they did this last year.
Yes. That's a really good point, though. I think we should touch on that for a couple of minutes because I know last week, because we were so fresh on 11th overall pick, okay, there's Reinbacher and Pelika or Pelika, whatever he says.
And
then, but then you're right. Every, not just one, every draft guru experts, prospect experts, I heard they're saying those 2 guys are going to get overpicked because they're a rarity, a right shot defenseman. But really, neither of them might be even top 10, top 12, top 15 guys. Wow.
Yeah, basically they're the best 2 defensemen in the draft, but they're not the best. They're not top 10 players.
Yes,
essentially.
Yes.
And it's a notoriously deep draft, right? Like people talking about the first 20 spots could be really good players. It's a pick they can't afford to miss, really. There's the thought of like if by some craziness Michkov falls down due to the whole Russia factor and being stuck over there. Right? Do you take that shot? Then
I do,
of course, right? But yeah, like do other teams, do the Canucks really feel this need for defensemen and go a little bit off the board to do that? Yeah. That scares me. But also, like wingers have such low value that like, is it even worth taking a winger at this point, right? Because you can go get them for free, essentially. Right? So if you're looking at like an Andrew Cristall or an Edward Sale, like it's a little bit, It's wingers don't do much for me unless they are elite, because you can pick them up for pretty cheap. But that might change. 2 years from now, when we're out of this flat cap era and the cap's $87 million, let's say, maybe wingers start to have value again, because that cap will be on that steadily increasing level. But we'll see if that's the case.
Wow. So, what would you rank? What would you rank your prospect knowledge out of 10 before last Monday, the draft lottery, and now 1 week later?
I think I went from a 2 to a 3. I really haven't focused much on it. Yeah, we still got 43, 44 days until the draft. Yeah, I will wait till about 4 days before the draft, and then I'll start focusing on it.
Well, if the
Canucks were top 5, I'd be all in. Over. Like, who's the top 8, and let's sort that out from there. But when you get to 11, right, you're talking about the top 20 guys essentially that could be the pick, because everyone's going to have a different board.
Actually, I'm really glad you brought that up about top 20 because, and by the way, Carol, it doesn't show up on our StreamYard, but thank you. We acknowledge that you're giving your 9-month member shout out. So thank you very much, Carol. Okay. So here's a theory I heard on one of the podcasts I was listening to. You trade down from 11 to 15 to 20. Okay. In return, So you trade away 11, but you get back 15 to 20 and a second rounder, and then you use that second rounder to use as a sweetener because we don't have a second rounder right now. Like, do you have time for that kind of thinking? I don't know if a second rounder does anything for you, but it's a sweetener.
Yeah, in this draft, maybe. I mean, maybe you didn't have to use it on Philip Hronik.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they do have 2/3, 3/4, right? Although those obviously don't move the needle nearly as much as a second. I don't have like the draft value chart in front of me. But I feel like 2/3 is worth about a second, probably.
Right.
You know, the Canucks third is going to be decently high, right? It's probably going to be around pick 70, 74-ish.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you can make a move with that. That Toronto third round pick isn't going to be super high either, I don't think.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
That should be, actually, it'll be 89. So it's going to be pretty deep.
Yeah.
But that was the pick they got for Luke Shen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they can make something happen, right? Sweeteners. You look at these players and it's like, you shouldn't have to sweeten. You shouldn't have to sweeten a Connor Garland, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe, I get it for a Brock Besser, but yeah, like a Connor Garland, even Anthony Beauvillier, I don't think, you start to look back and you think, was Anthony Beauvillier a sweetener from the Islanders, like for the Canucks? Like the Islanders said, oh, we're not doing this trade unless you also take Beauvillier, right? Maybe that was the case.
Oh, I never thought about that. Or maybe the trade was Bo for Bo and Ratu was the sweet. No, I'm just messing with you.
Right, yeah. I mean, Beauvillier had, 40 points in 82 games.
Yeah.
Nothing terrible, but nothing world-breaking. But again, not getting much power play time, right?
Sure.
But,
Sure.
$4.15 million. Maybe you trade that, hold a bit of salary, although that's probably worst case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate trading picks away for a team that's so not there, right? They're not.
Yes.
Trading picks to sneak into the playoffs seems wacky to me. And the problem is, you now have Florida on this miracle run where people are going to be like, oh, you just got to get in and you never know. It's like, yeah, but I mean, Florida won the President's Trophy last year, right?
Yeah,
they're not a terrible team, and they added Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
And like, sure, they barely got in the playoffs because Pittsburgh, fumbled the bag at the very end of the season. But I mean, they're a really good team, and they have a goaltender who's a world beater, apparently, Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
But it gives me fear. You look at, okay, well, you have Florida making it. You have Seattle, or almost Seattle, but you have Dallas making it, and they weren't, supposed to be this fantastic team. There's a threat that they're going to be like, oh, you just got to make it in, and you never know. It's like, sure, that's the case, but it's not the case very often, right? You want to give yourself the best shot possible. Not, we're not going to get we don't want the third spot in the Pacific for the next 5 years, right? That's not going to be a team that wins it all.
Sure. I have one more Canucks related thing that we forgot to mention, but I think we could chat about it for a few minutes.
Sure.
Did you see their new commercial?
I did hear about it. I saw the commotion about it, and I decided not to watch it for my sanity.
It's not as okay. Maybe this is so predictable that I'm not towing no company line. It's not that bad. Like, it's not great, but I know and I get why people are having fun with it when you're highlighting words such as habits, structure, and standard, not playoffs, win or kill the other team. It's more of these, but they're really basing it on Rick Tocchet's personality. Just like they built something around Boudreaux, they built something around Tortorella. So it is kind of funny though. Some of the criticism is warranted. Instead of seeing some amazing plays by Petey and Hughes and Demko, you're seeing like practice footage and stuff like that. So I don't know. And there's even one line, JT Miller saying it's not all about wins and losses. Some would say it is. So I can see why people take issue with some of the commercial, but it's a commercial. Like,
yeah, it is. It is kind of weird. I mean, like, you think of like what's the most exciting? What makes you want to go to a Canucks game?
Yeah.
Is it the structure? Is it the is it the shot blocks? Is it finishing the check? No, it's Quinn Hughes. It's Elias Pettersson. It's Thatcher Demko, right?
Yeah.
Highlight them. You have Quinn Hughes who got Norris votes this year. You have Elias Pettersson, who's a genuine Selke candidate in the future, right?
Yeah.
And you have Demko, who, started off the season pretty rough, got hurt, and then came back and was very good. Highlight them, right? I feel like I don't know, if you're gonna make a commercial trying to sell tickets, just remake like the Don Cherry Rock'em Sock'em DVDs, right? Of just your team, right? Where it's just, it's just straight up, we're going to show a few hits. We're going to show some sweet goals, some sweet saves, some good moves. It's so easy. You don't have to show practice footage. You don't have to show, Nolan Bumgarner blowing the whistle, right? Like it's just put together, make it exciting. It's obviously, marketing department, they have their focus groups and they'll figure it out. But I don't know. It doesn't sound too inspiring to me.
You're right. You make a good point though. Honestly, a minute of highlights. That's what people go to YouTube to see highlights. They don't go to see, like a coach talking. Yeah. So as much as I like talking, and as much as I really think he will succeed here, I really do. I do think, I think I know who made the commercial. If it's and he's really good. Like if it's the same guy who does all the Canucks videos, he's great. But maybe this one missed the mark a little bit.
Yeah, and those like Canucks behind the scenes videos do so much more for me than a commercial will, right? That's the interesting stuff to me. Show like a mic'd up, like put some mic'd up clips in there where people are getting fired up about a goal. Like, there's a lot of ways you could go with it.
I love it.
Maybe that's their plan though. Maybe they want to appeal to the older crowd that has more money. That wants to see, structure and good hits and let's play the right way, the Canadian way, right? But who knows?
What would our 3 buzzwords be for Canucks After Dark? Late.
Inconsistent, technical problems,
and late. There you go.
And late,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that was funny. By the way, JT Miller shot a 78 in his qualifier. You think you could beat him?
No, that's like open qualifier conditions.
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Is it?
He shot par on the front. I mean, that's like that would be like shooting like. That you put him in, I don't know, you take him to Green Acres and he's shooting like a 68 probably, right? Like that's a big difference playing on tour conditions.
Right. Yeah, and I think I read he golfed with his dad, is that right?
I think his dad was his caddy.
His caddy? Okay, that's pretty cool.
That's
pretty memorable. That is pretty cool. Kind of like how I carry Jacob's bowling balls around Northern Ontario next week.
Very much the same thing.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. Okay.
All right. So that's the Vancouver Canucks. Anything else Canucks related that we want to discuss?
I just love that we have our 3 buzzwords now: late, inconsistent, and technical problems.
It is on brand.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive into some playoffs, shall we?
Yeah.
Because we have conference finals coming up.
Okay.
So let's touch base on round 2. Right.
Sure.
We have neither of us did great. Right. Let's start with the East. Let's start with Florida, Toronto.
I had Toronto.
Yeah. You picked Toronto in 6. I also picked Toronto in 6. It was Florida in 5. This series, Florida just took over. I mean, look, I think Toronto was the better team game 1 and game 2.
Yeah.
Sergei Bobrovsky just went to peak Sergei Bobrovsky form, and there's nothing the Leafs could do about it. They got goalied, and I really like the makeup of their team. I like Kyle Dubas. I'm indifferent to Sheldon Keefe, but there's of course going to be all this talk of you've got Matthews making 11.5, you've got Marner making 11, you've got all these guys. I think Steve Dangle called them like crazy jersey number contract values, right? Like $70 million, values of contracts that you wouldn't see on jerseys effectively.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair, right? But I mean, if you sit down and you don't know the history and you look at how the Maple Leafs are assembled, you think, wow, that's going to be a really good team. And they are a really good team. They just don't have that playoff magic. But Florida apparently does.
Yeah. Do you blow it up if you're Toronto?
I think logically you shouldn't, but I think they have to in kind of this weird way. Like I don't think you can run it back the same way. However, does that remind you of a certain team 5 to 8 years ago with an aging Alex Ovechkin that, you know, did the same thing, right? They assembled this team that looked really good on paper. Ovechkin, Karlsson, Backstrom, a great goaltender in Holtby. And, you know, they looked like a team that was great in the regular season. They had a guy who would score 50 goals a year, and they couldn't do it in the playoffs. And then after everyone said, okay, you know, they're sort of done and they're moving on, and, you know, they sort of stuck with that same group, then they won the whole thing, right?
Yes.
However, I don't think in a rabid fan base like Toronto, that market, I don't see how you can come back with that same group. I think you got to shake something up, even if it makes the team a little bit worse, just because I don't think for Kyle Dubas, I don't think you can come back with that same group. And then if the same thing happens again, like, what do you say? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't do anything. Right. Like, I think you have to have change for the sake of change, even if logically, which is how I try to approach things, logically, that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, and they went for it. They brought in O'Reilly, Shen, Achari, McCabe, others. And granted, some of the guys, the Engvalls of the world, they weren't going to do much. What did they do with Bunting? What did they do with Kerfoot? What did they do with Justin Hall? So there's a lot of decisions there for Toronto. And I agree with you, Parker. I think you look at that team, and they have so much money, $40 million tied up in 4 guys.
Yeah,
that's half the salary cap, basically. Yeah, that's too much.
And those additions were the best part of that team.
Yes, I agree.
But Ryan O'Reilly was phenomenal. Luke Shen was worth more than a 3rd-round pick.
Yes.
But the guys who they need to be the guys weren't the guys, right? They just weren't. And that's the tough part, right? I mean, a big part of that's goaltending, right?
Yes.
They had the worst goalie in that series. Sergei Bobrovsky was absolutely phenomenal.
Yep.
But you pay these guys, you pay Austin Matthews to score 60 goals a year and to finish, right? He needs to find a way to do that, and he couldn't. You know, his contract expires next year, and, you know, he says he wants an extension, but, you know, there's always been this talk about, like, oh, Connor McDavid's going to be, you know, he's going to be wanting to get out of Edmonton. I mean, Toronto's done less, really, than the Oilers have in McDavid's time. So we'll see what happens there. But Florida pulled it off, and they looked good.
And they'll be facing the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think I got this one wrong, too.
Yeah, I think we both said New Jersey in 7.
We were really off on the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Carolina looked so much better than I thought they would be.
Me too.
Like, they just ran away with that thing. I think there was that one game that the Devils won 8-4.
Yeah,
that was a weird one. But, I mean, you look at these games. Game 1, 5-1 Carolina. Game 2, 6-1 Carolina. Game 4, 6-1 Carolina.
What?
Game 5 went to OT and was 3-2. There wasn't a close game in this series until Game 5, right? I really didn't pay attention to it because I would usually like realize like, oh, the game's on. It would be like the end of the first. I'm like, it's already like 2-3-0. Like, I'm not going to pay too close attention. And none of the games were very exciting and close. Carolina kind of just ran away with it. I mean, they got to be the favorite going into the Eastern Conference Final, but they're the favorite against the Florida Panthers, who knocked off the best regular season team of all time and like one of the other best regular season teams in the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I know we'll go through all 4, and then we'll do our predictions. I also know I'm like 28 points behind you, so I basically got to pick a team that's not even playing to win. But I'm gonna have to get a little bit strategic here. But okay, so not much to say about Carolina. Yeah, what's crazy, Parker? I'll just say this: I think we both picked New Jersey because you wouldn't say they're the massive underdogs. They were 1 point apart in the regular season. 1 point, 113 and 112. These are 2 amazing teams, and one team played like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it again came down to goaltending.
Yeah.
Right. That's the obvious one. I mean, Freddie Anderson was very, very good.
Yeah.
And the Devils tandem of Vanacek and Schmid they weren't there. Right. They were ineffective.
I do like their team though. I like the New Jersey.
I do too.
Good for a long time.
Yeah, I do. They did the rebuild right. They got Jack Hughes. Luke Hughes looks okay as well.
Yep.
This is the start of that New Jersey being a team to worry about. Carolina's been there for a couple of years, right? They've this is probably year 3 or 4 of being in the mix in the playoffs.
Wow.
So it makes sense that they had the experience and they pushed through. But yeah, you're going to be hearing from New Jersey quite a bit.
Yep. Okay, what did we both predict in Vegas, Edmonton?
Vegas, Edmonton. I had Edmonton in 6. You had Edmonton in 7. So of course we both missed that with Vegas pulling it out. And this is the series I think I was most disappointed in. I don't like Vegas at all.
Yeah.
And I don't love Edmonton, but I like McDavid. I like Draisaitl. I don't like Alex Pietrangelo after that slash.
Yeah, that was dirty.
I didn't like to see Vegas pull that one out, and I don't want to be rooting for Dallas, but I'm going to be. But yeah, I mean the Oilers, that first game, I think was that the one that Draisaitl just scored every goal.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Wasn't enough. And again, not many close games this series. 6-4, 5-1, 5-1, 4-1, 4-3, 5-2. So none of the games are super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Edmonton just they didn't have the goaltending really. That's the biggest thing.
I think the biggest story and happened in the week during the week after we recorded was the double suspensions. Now, what's crazy is I like Edmonton, Parker, more than I like Vegas, full stop. Yeah. But I like Alex Pietrangelo way more than I like Darnell Nurse. I actually don't like Nurse. We were kind of making fun of him as their version of Tyler Myers, which probably isn't fair. But when you look at what Nurse did, initiating a fight with a very willing dance partner, whereas Pietrangelo basically tried to break his stick or break Draisaitl's forearm or whatever. It was, I honestly could not believe that it was one game apiece. Now I get, even if they weren't trying to even them out, which I think they were, I get the whole saying that, a one game suspension in the first round of the playoffs is like 2, and maybe a 1 game suspension in the second round is 3, whatever multiplier you want to use. Yeah. I just can't, you can't convince me that those are equal in severity.
No, not at all, right? It's the intent, right? One guy wants to scrap, right? Which is a thing that happens in hockey. The other guy saw the best player as of in this round scoring on an empty net and decided, I have a chance to give our team an advantage by injuring this player. That was pure, Kadri got the rest of the series suspension last year.
Yes.
I think where they just said, it might be 2, might be 3 games. We don't care. It's the rest of the series.
Yeah.
I thought they should have gone that way with Pietrangelo right now. You're not seeing, you tried to take a guy out for the series. You're not seeing this again. Yeah. I was surprised, the only one game was, and I know I don't think he's classified as a repeat offender. But even then, it was so egregious that it just didn't make sense to me that player could be back for game 5 or game 6 or whatever it was. Yeah. It just seemed odd to me.
And it wasn't like a boom. He put his he did this.
Yeah, it was a full on
chop.
Yeah, full axe chop. Like you'd see in those woodsman competitions.
Yeah. What was the score game 5, by the way? What was the score that they both missed?
Game 5 was 4-3 Vegas. And then game 6 was 5-2.
So, without even looking at the stat line or their stats for their playoffs, do you think it's a bigger loss for Edmonton to lose Nurse? No. It's a bigger loss for Vegas to lose Pietrangelo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then we got one series right, I think.
Yeah, I think you said the Stars in 6.
Oh no,
I said the Stars in 7.
Oh, I lost a point. This is ridiculous. I lost a point.
Yeah. Look, I want to start. And you were in Seattle at Climate Pledge Arena. I was in Seattle.
Yes. Yeah.
I was in Seattle for this golf thing, and basically our thing started at 5:04. We couldn't go in till 4:20, I think, 45 minutes before. So we went to a bar right next to Lumen Field. And there was a bunch of people in there be like, "Hey, turn on the hockey game!" We're all here to watch the hockey game. And then we went into Lumen Field, and it's all in the club level, and all the TVs have the Kraken game on, and they scored a goal, and the whole place was cheering.
Yes,
Seattle's a hockey town now. Seattle's such a good sports town. They buy into everything.
Yep.
And I genuinely wanted them to win. They're supposed to be a rival. They haven't done anything yet. to the Canucks.
No, right.
A lot of these fans are Seahawks fans, and I'm a Seahawks fan, so I sort of, have that mutual respect. I'm a Mariners fan as well. And, watching them, I was like, I was rooting for them, and that the city of Seattle has really bought in, which is awesome to see. And they'll be a good team for the next few years. Dallas was just a little bit better tonight, really. It was a very even series going the whole distance. Tonight was 2-1. I didn't watch this game. I was busy, but, from everything I heard, it sounded like it was a pretty close one.
Yeah, I took my mom out for belated Mother's Day dinner, but we got back to watch the third period, and you never felt like Seattle wasn't going to catch up. And granted, they scored with 17 seconds left, so to get 2 in 17 is a little bit tricky.
Right.
But I'm with you about Seattle being a sports town, adopting the team. And by the way, 2 questions: did you go to the Armory for like the drinks, or
no? I went to Elysian.
Okay, cool. Here's the other thing, more important thing that I think I would love your opinion, and maybe our viewers would find this interesting. Sitting in the arena, Parker, maybe it's because they got down early. That was the one where Dallas got out to 4-0 lead in the second, so maybe that was the reason why. But I totally felt like I was in a city watching a game where you knew that this was a new fan base, because it's not like they didn't know when to cheer, when to boo. But it's almost like I was surprised they weren't more into it, trying to rally their team when they were down 4-0. I'm surprised they weren't more vociferous when there was a blatant call that was missed. It's hard to explain, but I'll just say this. I'm sure there's some real diehard fans who understand every nuance about the game. Awesome. But I got the sense that a lot of those fans were happy to be there. They're taking a night of entertainment, and they're surprised. Let's just see how far this thing can go, because we're an expansion team kind of thing. But I don't know how to explain it, but it was just more like, and I'm not. It's the opposite of being jaded. I think Canucks fans, as much as we rag on them and each other, we know our stuff. The fans at the game know their stuff. They know when to boo, when to cheer, and I don't know. It's just kind of vibe I got. Nothing bad. Just they're a brand new team.
It makes sense, right? A lot of the guys, and I noticed that in the bar too, right? A lot of the guys, they were very just excited, but they haven't been hockey fans for long, and that's why these expansions to these markets is so good for hockey. You have these guys who they don't really understand the nuances of every single play, but they're stoked that their team is doing good. When there's a goal, they know it's a good thing and they're fired up, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was excellent. But yeah, I think Seattle sports fans are happy to be there. The Mariners have been garbage for 22 years. They got their basketball team taken away. The Seahawks have been good, but that's really the only sports team that they've had the last few years, other than the Storm. I think, it makes sense, right? But I think as you get, a couple more seasons under the belt, as you get a couple more playoff series, as you get, maybe a playoff series against Vancouver where that rivalry can start to build up, I think you're going to really see that, they're going to develop into those educated diehard fans, because I think that's sort of the way they function, right? They buy in. And you look at Mariners fans, right? They haven't had much to cheer about until, they had Ichiro, of course, and then, now they've got, Julio and Kelenic, and they look like a decent squad, but they haven't had much to cheer about. Other than the Seahawks, so they're a very committed fan base in Seattle.
Sure. Before we get our predictions, I have one more thought about the Seattle Kraken that I love your opinion on, Parker, and love your opinion in the chat too. So answer this in the chat, everyone watching. By the way, it goes without fail, we gained 10 to 15 subscribers in the last 10 minutes. I don't know how that happens. I mean, not subscribers, viewers, right? We shot up from 75 to 92.
Yeah, maybe you guys show up late.
Yeah, late people. Okay, the guy I went to the game with, he made the observation that Seattle, he didn't say they're better or worse than the Canucks because of this, but they don't have the Pedersen, they don't have the Hughes, they don't have the true superstar, but they do have a lot of depth, and that's why they're able to roll 4 lines pretty deep and pretty aggressively, rolling through Colorado and then taking Dallas to 7. So would you agree with that sentiment that they're whether or not you think you need them or not, that they don't have them, but maybe that's what makes their style game so appealing and so impressive?
Yeah, we saw it in that series against Colorado, right? Especially in that last game where it was like, McKinnon played however many it was, 28 minutes, something like that. And every time he was off the ice, it felt like they were just waiting for him to get back on, right? Get rested, get back on.
Yes.
It's, and you talk about a team that's easy to buy into, right? Like, hey, we don't have the stars. We don't have the we don't have the Nathan McKinnon. We don't have the Mikko Rantanen or whoever or the Cale Makar, right?
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of guys who weren't good enough for their team. We have a bunch of 8th bests essentially. And they all go out there, they work hard and they pull off some wins because they have that depth and they have that passion. Very easy mentality to get behind, right? That sort of blue collar, depth style. They're gonna have a couple of those stars though, right? Like Matty Beniers is going to be a heck of a hockey player for them.
Yes.
And they've got Eberle and they've got good enough players that they can at least keep up when the other team's stars are on the ice. But yeah, when you put the 2 third lines against each other, right, that depth is just going to be better. And that's sort of the way the expansion teams ran it, right? Like same thing with Vegas, right? You got William Karlsson, Jonathan Marchessault, all these guys that you wouldn't expect to see put up a ton of points, but given the opportunity, they were able to do so. And of course now they have stars, right? They've got Eichel and Stone, but 3 years ago they didn't. So it's interesting to see.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think it's time to get to our predictions. Before we do that, Parker, how many points? I lost one. So how many points am I behind you?
I believe you are 8 points behind. I had 21 in the first round. You had 14. So I believe you're 8 points behind. So you need me to get both of these completely wrong, and you need to get them perfect, and then we'd be tied going into the final.
Okay.
Well, I think you might have a chance.
Okay, I do need 10 seconds here. Do I go with the double thinking where I pick who I think you're going to pick, but you're not going to pick that because you think I'm going to pick it? Nah.
Pick whoever you think will win. I'm going to say I'm not super confident in my picks. But pick who you genuinely think will win. And, we don't want to manipulate it, really.
Never. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I've got mine written down, so I'll let you start it off.
Okay.
Let's start on the East. The Florida Panthers, who knocked off the Boston Bruins, knocked off the Toronto Maple Leafs, against the Carolina Hurricanes, who looked pretty dominant against the Islanders, who looked pretty dominant against the Devils, right? Talking about a team that sort of ran through 2 teams, and Florida had to battle a little bit more against Boston, but knocked off 2 really good hockey teams. Where are you leaning with this one?
Carolina had 20 more points than Florida in the regular season. That's why I'm picking Panthers in 7.
All right. I also picked the Florida Panthers.
Oh, I suck. Oh, no. I can't.
I'm taking them in 6.
Okay.
And for me, it's this. I'll be honest. Both of my picks are out of want. I want Roberto Luongo to win. I genuinely. I think that would be awesome. I know, Carolina won 17 years ago. I don't care too much about any players on that team. Not that I do too much about Florida. But I'm going to take Florida. I think Carolina might have the edge. But I think I'd much prefer Florida to move on to the final.
I'm so stupid. If I was smart, I already know that you're going to pick Dallas over Vegas. I just know that. I'm willing to bet my house on it. Okay, and I'm not going to change mine. I'm going to pick Vegas. So I actually could have. I'd have to be right, of course, but I actually could have made up the deficit if I had just thought for a split second that you would take Florida, but I actually didn't know who you're going to take, quite frankly. Yeah.
I just sort of wrote them down. I just picked off a whim.
So if Vegas does beat Dallas, which we'll get to, and then we take opposite teams in the final, I could tie you.
Chance. Yes.
Okay.
No,
as long
just settle
as long
it.
as Florida doesn't win in
We'll have to
6.
settle on the golf course and not the bowling alley.
That'll be very fair.
All right.
Okay.
Second series on the West, the Dallas Stars, who had 2 fairly tough series. Minnesota, not a cakewalk. Minnesota hung in there. And this, obviously, against Seattle goes to 7. You have Vegas, who just killed the Knights. The Vegas killed the Jets, really. And didn't have too much trouble with the Oilers. They shut down, Draisaitl and McDavid were good, but again, Vegas's depth reigned supreme.
Yeah.
So Dallas, Vegas gets home ice, of course. And you are going with Vegas in how many games? And why?
I said Florida in 7, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going Vegas in 6. I know I didn't have the same number. Vegas in 6.
Okay.
I just think they're going to get to the final without having to play 7 games.
I'd be miserable if that happened, and then I would need Florida to win. I can't. I don't want Vegas to win. I think Vegas is a pretty clear favorite here. I'm curious as to what the actual odds are, but I'd probably lean 65-35 for Vegas.
Yeah.
But I don't like Dallas very much, but I really don't like Vegas. Dallas has Jason Robertson, who's been really a non-factor so far. I'd love to see him take a step forward and try to command the series.
True.
Ottinger's been okay, nothing crazy. Vegas is a scary team though, and it's a very passionate arena.
Yes.
I think they'll have a decent edge, but I will hope for Dallas and pick Dallas in 7.
Okay. So
I just want Game 7.
Yeah, that's fair. So you have 7 in the West, 6 in the East, and I'm opposite.
Yes.
Okay.
And again,
so at least there's a bit of.
I hope these series are close. I don't want a sweep on either side, even if it was Dallas. This is. There's all this talk about it's all these non-traditional markets, right?
Yes.
Vegas, Dallas, Sunrise, Florida, and Raleigh, North Carolina, right? Not hockey markets really in the slightest. I want this to be a good showcase, right? We want close games. We want overtimes. We want 6-7 game series. You don't want Vegas to win 5-1, 3-0, 4-2, 4-1, right? And just run away with it, right? You want it to be close. And of course, you want a close Stanley Cup final as well.
Yeah.
So that's really my main hope.
By the way, I looked up just the first Vegas betting site I see. Vegas Golden Knights -130, Dallas Stars plus 110.
Okay, so pretty close. That's probably 55-45, really. That's really not much. That's actually closer. I would put money on Vegas with those numbers.
Florida versus Carolina. I have to find it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I just think that would be a good, a pretty good value bet.
Yeah, Carolina -140, Florida +120. So this was a tiny bit more disparity.
Yeah, and I'd probably if I was betting, and again I'm sure you have too, been offered these sketchy gambling sponsorships for some things, right?
Only once, yeah.
Yeah, and and it's all affiliates. I highly recommend against gambling. But if I were, again, I'd probably put money on Florida there. Just because I think that series is kind of a toss up with how Florida's played, and with how well Bobrovsky's played.
Sure.
But yeah,
by the way, Parker,
I would love to see a Florida Dallas final and Florida walk away with it.
Right. And just to finish your thought on the non-traditional markets, Merrick and Friedman this morning were talking about the fact that all 4, Dallas, because they predicted a Dallas win, Dallas, Vegas, Florida, and Carolina, no tax states, generally warm climates. So they're saying as a UFA, who wouldn't want to go to a warm climate, no tax place to play?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, right?
Versus Winnipeg, honestly.
Yeah, right. Florida and Winnipeg offer you the same contract. Where are you going, right? I'm going to the place where I can jump on the jet ski after a February practice, right?
Yeah.
That sounds much nicer than
not shovel your car out of snow.
Right, driving your F-250 through the snow home.
I hear you.
A nightmare.
I hear ya.
Wow. All right. So I think that's everything we wanted to cover, and we timed it pretty well. We were 59 minutes in.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover here? I mean, the Canucks announced training camp will be in Victoria this year, not Abbotsford. Kind of unfortunate for us.
Yeah.
A little harder to get to. Do you think you're going to make it out there at all?
It depends. Honestly, not likely. If it's in the middle of the week, I don't know if I can justify.
I think it is a weekend. It's like September 21st, 25th. I think it's like a Thursday to Monday.
Okay, then maybe I might do a day. I don't know.
Yeah.
You?
I was kind of in the same boat. Like, I'd love to get out there for a day, but it's kind of a pain. The ferry doesn't really go to Victoria. It goes an hour away or 40 minutes away.
Right.
Taking the car on the ferry is expensive.
We'll talk. Maybe someone will sponsor us to go. Canucks After Dark at
Sure.
Canucks Training Camp.
If you've got if you want to put us up in a room for a night and pay for our ferry, we will gladly sponsor you for a couple of episodes. So feel free to reach out.
Yes, exactly.
That would be lovely. Anything else you want to talk about here?
No, excited for these conference finals to get going. Not till I think I saw Thursday and Friday. There's a 2-day gap. Is that right?
Is that when it is? I haven't looked here. We've got Thursday at 5:00 will be Florida and Carolina, and then Friday at 5:30 will be Dallas and Vegas.
Okay.
And it looks like they are there's no 2-day gaps the entire way. Every game, there will be one game on every night here on out.
Gotcha.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. So what I'll do is, not what I'll do. What we'll all do is we'll build anticipation for a couple of days. But what I'll do is I'll make myself over to Ontario for the week and the weekend for the kids bowling. And Parker, I will figure out with you offline how we do Monday's show. But that's for us to figure out.
And Monday is a long weekend.
So
I do not have softball on Monday, so we can go a little bit earlier if necessary.
Okay,
we can figure that out.
You'll see me huddled in an alleyway in Toronto somewhere, just on my phone.
Sounds good.
At 1 a.m. their time.
Great. Good luck.
We'll make it work.
All right, folks. If you enjoyed this show and you missed any part, which I know a lot of you did, because there's 90 of you in here now, and there was not 90 of you the whole time. So if you missed any part of the show, feel free to rewind back to the beginning, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of about 15 minutes or so. Or even better, if you wake up in the morning and you want to catch up, you can find it, of course, wherever you get your podcasts or here on YouTube. By the way, 17 likes, guys. Hit the like button. We got you in here. Get those numbers up. We do appreciate it. It does help us out. Clay, any parting words this fine, warm, very warm in here Monday evening?
Everyone out there, stay cool, stay hydrated, enjoy a 2-day break from playoff action, and then you can see how miserably Parker or I do on our predictions pretty quick.
Sounds good. All right, folks, this has been fun. You can find me on Twitter at ParkersPucks or on YouTube, ParkersPucks. You can find Clay, Canuck Clay on Twitter, Canuck Clay on YouTube. We're pumping out content. I made one video in the last month, and you've been doing your live streams, I think, sometimes.
Not tonight, though, yes.
So go subscribe to those, and we will talk to you next week.